You were CEO of MediaWorks for a decade, New Zealand Rugby Director and Chairman for a decade. You've been Chiefs Chairman, Fred Hollows Foundation Chair. Currently the Fiji Drua Chair, on the board at Radio New Zealand, and were once named New Zealand's toughest bastard by the New Zealand Herald.
I think I have to take personal responsibility for the carnage. That deal that MediaWorks sold to Ironbridge for $777 million has in fact destroyed that company. Now, TV3 got sold the other day to Sky for $1. MediaWorks has been in receivership at least once, if not twice, since then. And I'll tell you the Sky story. With rugby, I think we did well. During that period, we were highly successful on the field. We had the All Blacks winning the World Cup in 2015. We had the Black Ferns winning 2 World Cups. The Silver Lake proposal valued New Zealand Rugby at something like $3.3 billion. The fact of them coming in as that investment has been vital. Our revenue at that point was dropping from about 170, 180 down to about 40, and the organisation faced bankruptcy. I mean, I'll give you an idea that I threw at New Zealand Rugby when I first became the chair, which never got any traction. No one ever thought it was a good idea, and nothing has ever happened, and that is...
This week on Between Two Beers, we talk to Brent Impey.
Brent's CV is stacked. He was chairman of New Zealand Rugby for 6 years and on the board for 10. He was CEO of MediaWorks for 15 years and oversaw its $700 million sale. He was the founder of FM radio in New Zealand and helped start TV3.
He also managed teams in the Whitbread Round the World race and is the current chair of Fiji and Drua in Super Rugby.
In this one, we unpack his incredible life and all the best stories from it. Brent is a wealth of knowledge and wisdom, and you'll get so much out of this chat.
If you want us or one of our epic guests to MC or speak at your function or event, flick us a message at b2bspeakers.co.nz and we'll link you up with the perfect fit.
This episode is brought to you by TAB. Got a hunch? Download the app today and get your bet on.
Enjoy.
Brent Impey, welcome to Between Two Beers.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here.
We're very excited to have you in this morning. How are you feeling about chatting to us today?
I'm totally relaxed about it. You know? Not too bad. Putting the headphones back on, back behind a microphone. Let's go.
We find when we're researching our guests, the best person to talk to is always their partner because they give us the really good oil. And your partner, Wendy Palmer, was in fine form yesterday. She told us to ask you how many episodes you had listened to in preparation, but you actually revealed it this morning. So you've been doing your research on the show to get the feel of the vibe?
Yeah, I actually have listened to about 8 of them. And the funny thing about it is I know all 8 people. There's on the rugby side, there was Mark Ellis, Ian Foster, Wayne Smith, Sean Fitzpatrick. And then on the business side, Greg Foran and Zion Armstrong, I know both of them. And then on the media side, Paul Henry and Simon Barnett. So yeah, I sort of think, what am I doing? I'm coming into a friend's place here.
It's a really good cross-section of guests that you've got there. Any tips from any of them that you've kind of scribbled around and thought, oh, I need to do this, I need to add this, I need to do this?
Well, Simon's too genuine for me. Paul's flaky. I'm good.
Yeah, all right, very good. You would, you know them intimately. You would have known all their lies as well, right? You would have seen through all of their stories. Wendy also said we'll be able to tell if she dressed you or not, and I think you're looking good, so I can tell that she had a hand in it. I'm going to read you what she said when I asked her to describe you. She said, "He's extremely intelligent. He's very gregarious, very outgoing, extremely friendly. He's the guy who goes for a walk for an hour and I see him about 4 hours later because he stopped to talk to this person and that person. He's the guy who sees somebody with a map and decides to tell them how to get there and that he'll walk with them. He's quite a thoughtful, kind person, which may contrast with how he perhaps looks from a commercial perspective. He's a good heart. But if there's one thing Brent's not known for, it's sartorial elegance. If I don't make him wear something reasonable tomorrow, he'll turn up looking like a Grandad for a sports company. He'll have a Drua cap on, a Ukraine t-shirt, old Adidas pants he got when he was New Zealand Rugby chairman. Honestly, he's got no idea." Is that fair?
That's a very fair description, and it's also fair that not only am I this jacket I'm wearing, she decided I'd need this. It was in Buenos Aires I bought this. And then last night she said, this is the shirt you were wearing. And I said, oh, look, I've just put it on. And she said, no, it needs an iron. And here I am. I reckon I'm looking pretty cute.
I think so too, mate.
Perfectly frank.
You look good. It sounds like Wendy and Bonnie are cut from the same cloth, because everything Stephen wears as well is directed from his wife Bonnie too.
Yeah, I'm not known for my sartorial elegance.
One of the other things Wendy said is that walking is really big for you. And she talked about a Fitbit challenge where you kind of got to get your steps in, and it's monitored week by week. And Sunday it starts. You try to get sort of 10,000 steps in on the first day to get a head start on the competition. When did walking become such an important part of your life?
Well, I had a bit of a wake-up call a couple of times, really. One was when I was working at MediaWorks and got a bit of a health scare. It was a thing called sarcoidosis, and it was and the specialist said, look, mate, you've just got to slow down. You're working too hard, and you've got a health problem. And look, you're overweight. So even though I look great, 83 kgs. At one point I was 100. So I started walking and then got into the Fitbit, and now I love it. And it's about a number of things to try and make sure that I live the best life I can for as long as I can. And so, I have this Fitbit. There it is. And I'll walk. I aim to walk 2 hours every day. And I love it because there are just so many good things about it. First of all, I live on Waiheke. So that means walking around the hills is just awesome. Yeah, come across lots of people. But also a couple of other things that I found about walking. One is if you've got a complex problem, all of a sudden, bang, comes clear. It's just remarkable, really, because your mind's relaxed, and I like that. And then I've got headphones on and I listen to podcasts. It's where I've listened to all of the ones from you guys. I listen to a podcast called Ukraine the Latest every day from The Telegraph, because I'm very interested in what's happening over there. I listen to music, and I just find myself away in a zone.
Can I just look back to something Wendy said, which I thought was interesting? He's the guy who sees somebody with a map and decides to... How many physical maps are people carrying around these days? Because I reckon I'm calling bullshit on that, Wendy.
No, Chavis, here it is. This is mainly a Waiheke story as well. There are tourists who've got their map and they're looking to find their way to the vineyards. And I'm a cheeky bugger. So I'll go and stop and say, where you're looking for. And then I always say where you're from. And if they say I'm from America, I'll say, no, you're not. You're from Canada.
Yeah, smart.
And so I just sort of, it's a bit of a...
And do you follow along for a vineyard just to show them exactly where it is and maybe have a glass and then carry on again on the...
Not so often.
All right.
No.
Right. This is a big et, and there's a lot to get through in this one. Your CV is incredible. I'm going to give a snapshot, okay? Grew up in Papatoetoe. Lost a testicle in a schoolboy rugby game, stood for Parliament, became a media lawyer, founded New Zealand's first FM station, became a radio host, directed 2 Whitbread round-the-world yacht races, was CEO of MediaWorks for a decade, New Zealand Rugby director and chairman for a decade. You've been Chiefs chairman, Fred Hollows Foundation chair, currently the Fiji Drua chair, on the board at Radio New Zealand, and were once named New Zealand's toughest bastard by the New Zealand Herald. when I read it back,
actually, that was Metro Magazine.
Metro Magazine.
Yeah.
Bad info. When I read it back like that, what stands out to you?
My dad was tough on the outside and soft on the inside, and I think that's. I'm a product, I think, of my dad, and my mum, but obviously of that. In the early days, particularly in business, I was incredibly competitive, and I'm still very competitive as a person. However, there are some things that, from my background, that I reflect on now that I'm so grateful for. For example, being brought up as a kid in Papatoetoe, that was has meant a lot, because we were taught to be humble. We were taught that no person is better than another person, and that those sort of values have been deep. And I remember when we left Papatoetoe and Dad was an accountant in practice in Newmarket, we moved to Remuera and had this nice house on the Aoraki Basin in Darwin Lane, Remuera. And Dad said to my brother and I, look, the rubbish bins here may be gold-plated on the outside, but it's still the same crap inside. And that phrase has lasted forever. So it was those things that were really important, and I've tried to keep that. They're fairly deep things right through.
Lost a testicle in a schoolboy rugby game. I can't help but loop back to that again. I think Josh gave us that intel.
Just squeeze that in as if it's part of the...
bit of a Buck Shelford thing there, but is that...
Yeah.
Has he added GST to that story, or is that legit?
No, that's true. That was... I was about 15 then, and and it shows how medicine has changed. Yes, I did, and I remember the doctor told Mum and Dad, well, he'll only be able to father sex of either male or female, and won't be able to do both. This is what we were told, right?
I
know. And so
you had me thinking there.
So I was thinking.
I didn't realise it was one for one.
After Blair eldest was born, I thought, oh, okay, that'll be it. They'll all be boys, and then Tasha came along. So
the other interesting part of the puzzle is your partner Wendy is the current CEO of MediaWorks, the same role that you held for a decade. I'm interested in what the dynamic is like at home with her as CEO and you on the board of Radio New Zealand. Like, are there things you can and can't talk about? Are there lines?
Absolutely, Stephen. There are things we just don't talk about, because if we did, it would start just to get so complicated. I mean, our relationship is we have great relationship, but it's an unusual one, right? In the sense that she is 5 days in Auckland. I came over for a couple. I came over last night, so I got the instructions for what I was going to say and not say today. and I'm 4 over in Waiheke. So we're together 4 nights. We're apart 3. And there's a phrase for us. It's called LATs, living apart togethers, and it's fine for us. And last night we went out to dinner. Great night, cover everything, and it's good. But yes, if she asks about things related to MediaWorks that happened when I was there, absolutely happy. I mean, an example would be they're coming up to frequency renewals. So licenses were granted in 2011 for 20 years. Who would have thought we'd have been around in 2031, and it's coming up. So I'm happy to talk about that sort of subject. But if it's something that might impinge between Radio New Zealand and MediaWorks, will know. And we're fine with that. It's just others see it more from the outside. Oh, that's a potential conflict than we do. We just don't even cover it.
Because how long have you been on the board of Radio New Zealand? Is that a reasonably new addition to the CV?
Yep. That started, first meeting I went to was in November last year, so only, 8 or 9 months?
It's a really unique position. I mean, CEO of MediaWorks is such a big job, and for two of you in a relationship to have both held that role, like business can get lonely and there's like no one really understands the workload, but you very intimately understand exactly what she's going through. It's interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've heard this before from others who've been CEOs, that it is a lonely job. I mean, you're managing up and you're managing down, and it is a business relationship. It's not when you're in business, it's not a friendship thing. I mean, you have relationships, you build them, but in fact, it's a business, because you're paid as a CEO to maximise the shareholders' investment and to do the right thing, not only by the shareholders, but the people, the customers, the whole ecosystem. So it is in that way, it's a lonely gig. So I can help a little bit, in that regard.
The next theme we want to talk about is friendship. When I spoke to your son Josh, who put you forward for this interview, and I think this is the coolest thing when kids want to hear and capture their parents' stories. He spoke to us about your father's weekends, which caught my attention straight away because I love that stuff. So he said that 12 mates from Auckland Grammar, you go away in the first weekend of December each year with all the kids, and this year is the 40th edition. And I wanted to know all about it, but like how different these weekends look at 70 than they did at 30 and what's behind it.
Yeah, so this was a concept that started when there were only 4 of us in those days. We had our first children, and Blair, I think, he might have been 12 months, 18 months maybe, and we decided initially that it was to be a weekend where the mums would have a break. That was the thinking about it, and we went up to one of the guys. His wife had a place in Matheson's Bay, and it became pretty clear from day one that we had no rules for these children, so they could basically do what they like within the safety bounds, and that's how it's continued. It's interesting that as life has gone on, 2 or 3 of us have had we're on to second, in one case a third relationship. We've had 4 deaths amongst our group, and we've got one who's had a bad stroke. So it's life, but it's grown and grown, and now there are kids. And then we made a decision that the grandkids would come along, but not their partners. So there's no wives, no partners of our children, and now we've got grandchildren coming along. And last year we went, and it was great actually, we went to Motatapu Island, and there's a camp out there. I don't know whether you guys have ever been to the camp that's used at Administration Bay, and the kids could use kayaks, and they could there's obstacle courses and all these sorts of things. And now, but now things have changed. So it used to be that the old buggers like us, we would run the ship. Now we've got nothing to do with it. We just sit there and have a couple of beers, and actually less beers and more wine. And one of the guys, Chris, has got a vineyard at a Fitu, so he brings along the cliff edge, and we have a few wines and watch the kids organise and have a great time. But what it has done is that it's bound everybody together, and they're all mates. You know how you come across friends from the past, and just like that, you don't have to start a conversation. It's all, and those kids, and we hope now the grandkids, will be exactly the same. It's really quite unique.
I'm curious, the fathers that have now passed away and no longer with us, are their kids still coming on the weekends as well to stay connected with that group?
Yes, I mean this year we're going to Castaway, which is a lodge out at Paswauku there. Yeah. And one of the fathers who died, his daughter lives in Cairns, and she's coming over to be with us. So it's interesting. And a couple of the others didn't have children; they died younger.
And such a cool way to deal with life. We had a similar situation where once a year, guaranteed, you would always be at this one event. And you'd click straight into gear, but also having that shared experience with people that are going through different things at different stages is a really great way to kind of grapple with the things that life throws at you as well.
Yeah, and all of us have had ups and downs, whether they be personal relationships or financial or whatever they happen to be, but the bonds have remained.
I love ideas like this because I want to do it. I want to start one because you find we've got this pub crawl we do, and it's in its 7th or 8th year, but each year it gets a bit stronger and tradition sort of gets embedded. So I can't imagine on the 40th edition of this thing, it must feel so, I don't know what the word is, just important.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting that my own kids have started their own Father's Weekends with their own mates.
Have they?
Yeah. So they're into it as well. So. Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a really good thing to do, and it just was an idea that got dreamt up all that time ago.
There's a second friendship group which also runs through your life, which is an old man's walking group, walking club. I hope I'm not being disrespectful in that, or whether that's the official name or the name that's coined by outsiders in. But is that a group of men that have got together on Waiheke Island in their 70s now?
Yeah, it is. So our leader, Warren, he he's got Parkinson's, and he is inspirational. He just never ever gives up. He's so resilient, so strong. I love that about him. And the other guys, we've got a mix of guys who have, from the various things that they've done, and we talk about everything, every subject under the sun. There's nothing that's not discussed on a Sunday morning. We meet at 8 o'clock, and we meet at Ted's Corner. Ted is a reasonably well-known rugby coach, and the reason it's Ted's Corner is because when we decided to meet there, he parked down the road and rang up a couple of times. Where are you guys? Well, we're 50 metres up the road, so that's why it's got known as Ted's Corner. So yeah, and I mean an example of it was in 2022, February 22, we were walking, a beautiful morning, and the Russians had just invaded Ukraine. And all of us took a really strong position. This is just disgraceful. We come from a background of, the rules of international law, and this wasn't supposed to happen after the Second World War. Here it goes. What shall we do? And that led to us coming together, and we raised $75,000 on Waiheke for a truck. We then linked up with a guy called Tembi Powell, who was running this charity of mainly around ambulances at that point. We bought this truck, and it's now taking medical supplies up to the front line in Ukraine. So that was an example. They were a great group of friends, and we really look forward to it. And then we go down and have a coffee afterwards, and yeah, a date's gone. That's incredible that something as far away as the conflict in Ukraine, you all feel strong enough about it to actually action it. You have an idea and you actually action it. Is there a leader? Is it just all, you're all on the same cause? I think all of that group have been leaders, whether they've been in media, rugby, schooling. One guy is a marine scientist. Another guy ran an engineering company in Christchurch. So yeah, it's a group of guys who have got, let's get on and do stuff.
Is everyone wearing a Fitbit as well?
No, but I tell you what, most record their steps.
I was wondering about that. There must be a healthy element of competition.
No. The steps have to be counted. Yeah.
Do you feel like you've changed? I mean, a group of men in their 70s, are the kind of conversations that you have different to what you would have had in your 40s or 50s? You say you talk about everything, but is there kind of a perspective of experience that changes the way you communicate?
I just think as the generations have gone, if you go back post the war, so my grandfather was in the First World War. He got a bullet in the Battle of the Somme in his leg. Now, they didn't talk about a great deal. It took a lot to get my grandfather, I love my grandfather, to talk about stuff, because I was always quite inquisitive, as you can tell, to talk about the First World War. Then with Dad was, I explained his dad as terrific, but it took a while for him to open up. But later on, he opened up. And now in this generation, I think we are opening more and more and more, and I see it now in my kids. They take it to another level. So I think it's all that sort of stuff without actually going too deep into it.
Yeah, I'm keen to talk about your upbringing and those sort of early days a little bit more. So whenever someone like you has risen to the top of so many different fields, I'm always interested in their upbringing. What made them, where the work ethic and desire and drive came from. And from research, I've heard your dad was a real hard ass, like a good man, but really hard. And your mum was kind of more fun and life of the party. Is that a fair, if you can tell us a bit more about your parents?
Yeah, I come from a party house. I was one of those kids, my brother and I, who grew up being told to go to sleep behind the piano while the music was going. Dad played the banjo, and the words of many of the songs would be totally inappropriate today. Mum was a party girl. She loved having people and entertaining. She was a magnificent host and a terrific cook, and she just loved people being around. So I was brought up in a very social background, and so that's helped because we were encouraged to speak to the pauper or the king. It didn't really matter, and that sort of followed right the way through. So I think that's helped in terms of being able to build relationships, and so that part of it. I think the other part of it with the upbringing was this need to succeed. Dad came from quite a humble background, and he couldn't go to university, so he got his accountancy at what was night school back in those days. Mum was always frustrated that she couldn't run a business. She was very commercial, but in those days she was expected to be the stay-at-home mum. Dad had his activities like Rotary and the likes, but she was frustrated. So she would always want us to achieve the best we possibly could. And I was a disappointment, to be honest. When I got to Auckland Grammar, I started in 3A, but my grammar career was 3A, 4B, 5C, 6D, 7 special. Right? It's affectionately called the grammar slide, and what that was about was actually having too much of a good time, and Mum and Dad were. Particularly Mum, frustrated at the fact that, these school reports had come back saying could try harder, loses concentration, all this sort of stuff. And it wasn't until I got to university and thought, right, I'm going to sort my act out here, that I really became that driven. But it took a while. And
university is politics that you studied, and you started down the path of your own political party, if I've got that right.
No, yeah, not quite. So I did a BA LLB. So I majored in political studies and history, and actually both of those things have really stood me in good stead since, and I'm really a student of both. No, I didn't start my own party. In the early 1970s, it was quite a student protest time, very active around anti the Vietnam War, the growing changes that were happening in society. Abortion was illegal, homosexuality was illegal, all of these things. It was a breakout period. We had people like Spiro Agnew, who was the vice president of the US, come to New Zealand. He stayed at what's now the Pullman Hotel. It was the Intercontinental, which was a student pub in those days, the Big I. Anyway, protests and the likes, and about this, and then out of that, it started at Victoria University actually, but then spread to Auckland, was the Values Party, and the Values Party was built around environmental policies, care for, climate, not climate change, because that wasn't even there, but also these very liberal things. But the massive difference between the Values Party and the Green Party of today is that the Values Party view on working with other political parties will work with whoever, as long as they take in our sort of green type policies. And most of the candidates were very young, like I was, and so and I was chosen to be the candidate for the Values Party in 1975 in Tamaki electorate, which was great because it was the Prime Minister Rob Muldoon, or he was about to be the Prime Minister, Rob Muldoon's electorate. So I had great time going around with values signs, and we put them up everywhere, and I think from memory I got about 1,500 votes, and so but just as well I didn't get elected, because I planned to go overseas on the OE straight after. So, I'm glad he got it.
Did you ever consider or consider revisiting a career in politics or moving into that space?
Vaguely, but no. I found I decided at some point that I was only going to work in things that I was passionate about and only do things that I really loved, and politics wasn't it. I went to Parliament a few times, watched it, and thought I couldn't do this. I couldn't sit in. I'm not patient enough. So the answer is essentially no.
Yeah. Your career path is interesting, and it takes a few turns. There's media law, and then there's also sort of broadcasting. And I'm not quite sure of the timeline, but I had in the notes that in 1982 you were commentating on the Football World Cup. Have I got that right?
Yeah, so we did it at the OE, again, travel with a couple of the mates who were part of the Father's Weekend, funnily enough. And flattered in London, worked as a lawyer in London, and then came back, and I'd done a little bit of broadcasting in England, and so I came back and got a job as a talk host on then Radio Pacific. So Radio Pacific was started, and it was the first full talkback station in New Zealand. So I got a job. I was working as a lawyer Monday to Friday, and then I started off doing Saturday morning, midnight to dawn, and then progressed to Saturday afternoon, which they then turned into a sports show. The All Whites qualified for the World Cup, and in those days we only had a few little private radio stations, and the Broadcasting Corporation of New Zealand was huge. It had only two TV channels, every radio station, today's national radio plus ZB, the whole lot, and it was just us. So I managed to persuade the manager that I could commentate a soccer game. And the only thing I really had in my background is that I'm a Tottenham Hotspur fan. And God knows why.
For your sins.
Yeah, for my sins. Anyway, persuaded them that I could do it. And there were a couple of games that were played at Mount Smart for the All Whites before they went. And he said, well, if you can go and do those, we'll broadcast them live. They're played at night. If you're good enough, we'll send you. So, and that's what happened. So off I went to Spain, and a bit of a funny side of that as well, because it was never expected that the All Whites would get anywhere. In the pool they had Brazil, Russia and Scotland, and so it was never expected they'd do any good. Anyway, the first match against Scotland, all of a sudden we got a couple of goals. And I'm thinking, hell, what's going to happen here? Because I was due to go to England to get married straight after the round. If the All Whites had got to the second round, and Amanda, my wife, knew this, I wouldn't have made the wedding. Anyway, what happened?
Goal, New Zealand.
Goal, New Zealand. Yeah, got through it, and off I went.
Okay, so help us chart the path, because you come back to New Zealand and you become a media lawyer, and then there's the founding of 91 FM, and then there's helping secure the TV3 license. Is this that next period? Is this that next chapter?
Yes. So when I came back, I got a job as a lawyer at Russell McVeigh, and they acted for the Independent Broadcasters Association, which was the very small group of private radio stations. Hauraki in the old days, Radio I, likes of Radio Avon, and I became really into this, and there was an inquiry as to how FM radio was to be established in New Zealand, and was it going to be dominated by the state, or was it going to be allowed to be private stations? If they were, whether it's the existing ones or new ones. And then I hooked up with a group of guys led by Trevor Edgerton and Rob Mackay, and we applied for and got the first FM licence, which was based at Hurstmere Road in Takapuna, called 91 FM. And we were the first ones to launch, and then after that we launched got a station going in Waikato, and then in Christchurch. And from that, that led into the third channel licenses, and I was the lawyer for them, TV3. That was an incredibly long hearing, went for two and a half years, and TV3 got the license. We got the license. And a couple of things happened after that. Number one, I lost interest in the law. I realised it wasn't my passion anymore. There were other lawyers who, I remember one going to a function for a lawyer who was leaving to go to the US to study, and he said, I love the law. And I'm thinking to myself, actually, I don't love the law, so I'm getting out. So I did get out. and then of course TV3 got going, and there were all sorts of restrictions around overseas ownership, around all of the things you could do, which was really there to protect TVNZ as the state. And then there was a scrap between the shareholders and the bank, and within 6 months of TV3 launching, it was in receivership.
And what did this look like for you personally?
Well, financially it was a disaster, because I had left the law, and TV3 had gone into receivership. So that was a very testing time. We had 3 young kids, and how I got out of it financially was to learn to trade stocks, and I traded at night stock after stock after stock. I knew the New Zealand share market, the Australian share market. I learned about trading coffee and the futures market, and I recovered myself. Today, I couldn't tell you a damn thing about the futures market. I couldn't trade. I don't trade shares anymore, because I believe if you're going to, and this is, I guess, part of my character, if you do something, you really got to do it, right? You just never give up. Losing is not an option, and you just go for it. And then recovered, and then sort of developed a career media thing after that.
Just to delve into that a little bit more, this is trading stocks pre-internet for people that are listening as well. So are you burning the candle at both? Like, are you almost working 24 hours a day to try and pull yourself out of that?
Pretty much. Yep, there was at night. Yeah, exactly.
One of the most common themes we've heard from everyone we spoke to and prep for this is that, like, once you get your mind on an idea, like, the focus is just unbelievable, and you just find a way to make it happen. Like, in this period, was this one of your toughest periods? And like 3 young kids, and you're working 24 hours. Do you recall, like, what the balance of your life looked like and how hard it was?
What balance? There's no balance. You're just going for it. And it's true. If I think one of my strengths or weaknesses is that I am driven. And if I get focused on achieving something, for example, going back, we talked about that TV3 license as their lawyer. I was damn determined we were going to win. We're up against what were then QCs, today KCs, on the other. There were 3 other applicants, and I was damn determined to beat them, no matter what. So I am competitive, and I do get focused. Yeah.
But also after that testing period, does it teach you anything about risk aversion or resilience? Like, are you also a little bit scarred from that experience too, and wanting to protect yourself professionally?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think yes, I am. I'm not. I don't take the risks that I used to. Whether that's age, or whether it's having had a couple of setbacks like I've just talked about, then yes. So I'm not as speculative as I was back then.
Because I imagine in those days, it's quite. I mean, the opportunities potentially, you're seeing all of these things that could possibly happen, but the reality is they just fade into dust.
Yeah, and I'm a child of the '87 crash. We all thought life was great, and New Zealand was just going to a wonderful life right through the mid '80s and in our 30s, and then all of a sudden 1987 happened, and a lot of negative impact. So yeah.
So you do bounce back. And you eventually become the CEO of MediaWorks, but obviously there's a few ladders to climb in between. So what did that path look like?
So a bit of, after getting back on my feet, and goes back to Seamus' question, a bit of life balance came in. And so I set up my consultancy business, and I had a number of media clients, but Sky TV was one at the time. I kept looking after the Broadcasters Association and started developing some other things, but also I decided I had to spend some time with my kids, otherwise this was not worth it. So I got into coaching, so coached soccer down at Eastern Suburbs with Blair, and then coached both Blair and Josh was rugby and cricket, and I made sure that I was there at 3 o'clock to do the coaching, and those sort of 5 years from about 92 to 97, a lot of time with the family, I think was really invaluable, and it was. And I was cruising along doing this, and until the Canadians came along with about time at a job.
That's such a cool perspective as a dad, to prioritise knocking off being there for those events. I've noticed that in Stephen over here has started to do that as well around that kind of critical time of kids growing up. It's such a cool position to be in.
Yeah, it is. Unless you do it, then you just, I don't know. It's about developing those close bonds with the kids, and if you're absent, then you're not going to do much. And it's a balance. It is a balance. You mean you're responsible for making sure the household's got enough, and you know, in our case, we were fortunate enough that I was able to make enough to ensure that the kids were. And the whole family was looked after well.
And to Stephen's point before, it speaks volumes now because it is your kids that have put you forward for this to want to hear about these war stories, about why those bonds are so strong with them now. So it's a really, it's an awesome little look into that world.
Yeah.
So you become CEO of MediaWorks for 11 years, and this is quite an interesting era of New Zealand media. There's the sort of television wars, and there's all sorts. You launch new stations like C4, Kiwi FM, Channel Z. There's network stars, there's $100 million deals. Like, what of that 10-year period, what stands out as the most interesting chapters?
When I took over, and I enjoyed working for the Canadians, they were terrific. The TV3 was running at a loss of $12 million. They had bought the More FM group which was making about $3 million. But the TV needed sorting out. I remember going in there very early on and having a meeting with the management team and saying, well, we can't carry on like this. What are we going to do? And they had an HR department. And so I said to their HR people, well, come to me with a plan. So they did. And it involved getting rid of salespeople, news people, but none of them. So I decided, it was my first lesson, I'm not having HR. I got rid of a lot. And started teaching, hoping that my managers would learn to manage people. And they did. And so they started to identify the problems and where we could do better, whether it was in sales or whatever. Then the how are we going to win was the issue, and it came down to at TV3 we couldn't win 7 nights, but we might win 2. So we started really focusing on 2 nights a week, and things like Outrageous Fortune eventually came along, which did that. Sunday nights we were really strong, and then the investment in the news. We're going to make sure this is the best news service we can do it, and we had trouble. I mean, when I joined, there was a big issue over the hosts, which led in the end to John Campbell and Carol Hirschfeld being the front line, and Mark Jennings driving a winning culture, and we got there. So it was those sort of things. It was encouraging people to manage. It was management by walking around. So I'd go around all the time, and the team knew that we were in for the fight. And one of the most, if I think back about that time, one of the most remarkable things about it was that there were no leaks. There were no leaks anywhere. You'd never pick up a newspaper or anything like that and hear that, there was something going on inside. It never happened. And why is that? It's because the people were empowered to do the job.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, in this period, I've got a lot of questions. I kind of have heard that you have this incredible skill as a negotiator as one of your strengths, and I wanted to sort of talk about the deal, like $777 million deal, right? MediaWorks got sold, and you're overseeing this. what does the nuts and bolts of that look like? What does the negotiation look like? What's your role in it?
Negotiations is about a number of things. First of all, making the other person comfortable, also being clear, and also making sure that your team is coming with you. And I'll give you a couple of examples of that. We had a bit of a challenge in the 2007 World Cup. We had $12 million gone out in rights, and we had about 12 to 13 million in revenue. So we wanted this thing to break even and be a little bit better, but we couldn't afford for it to run at a loss. And then there were these rules on a Sunday morning.
Just for a point, this is the first time that TVNZ or One Sport didn't have the Rugby World Cup rights, right? This is the first time it's gone outside of that.
Correct. And how we got the negotiation over the table with World Rugby was to be able to persuade them of a younger, more active, more interested, as opposed to older and established. So that was how we got there, and to make them feel comfortable that they could deal with us and who they didn't know. But we had a problem, because if the All Blacks had got knocked out, we then had this challenge that we couldn't put advertising on Sunday mornings in the semi-finals and the final, and it was going to really cost us. So that was a challenge. So there was a bit of piece in the Broadcasting Act that said that that you could carry advertising if the majority of the audience was overseas, and this was done for Sky channels that came in overnight. So we thought, how are we going to get around this? We can't live like this. This is going to cost us too much money. So I came up with the idea of, let's do a deal with Papua New Guinea TV, because we've got 10 million people up there. So we got the feed in, and they took it. And the only condition they had to do was to play Heineken and BNZ ads and Port Moresby. That's fine. They were fine. They got it for absolutely nothing. But it's the negotiating around that is about making World Rugby feel comfortable to give it to us feeling internally as if we can do the job, and then persuading someone else that they're going to get a win-win out of it. So there's an example, television, just because you asked about that.
So are you simultaneously working those three parties to get that across the line, the Papua New Guinea element, the World Rugby element?
You're always working the deal. You're always working all parties, because you can't finish a deal until it's concluded, you've got to be on top of it all of the time.
Just a little. Did you get around those Sunday morning?
We did
advertising laws?
Well, we kind of did, and we didn't.
You got a little slap on the wrist, didn't you? My research.
Yeah. We were then prosecuted because it's a stupid law, absolutely ridiculous law.
Still in place.
Still, I know. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Why is that in place when you can do anything on the internet? You can see advertisements everywhere else. Yes, they brought a case against us. We put up our argument and we got fined $500, I think. So big deal.
What was your relationship like with, I mean, this was the era of TV stars in New Zealand. As the CEO, what's that relationship like for you?
Just normal. Absolutely normal. I mean, I'd wander down into the newsroom. That's where most of the, quote, stars, unquote, are. Chat to them, sit down, have a talk, just make them feel comfortable. I also think in terms of, particularly in terms of personalities, they need to know that you've got their back. That's absolutely critical, because they're out there every day, and if they make a mistake, they get criticised heavily. They've got to know when they are in that building that they're supported by the senior management. And because I'd done talkback and I've been on air, I kind of knew a little bit about those pressures. I was never a star. I was a sort of a fill-in type. But I think that they knew that they were always supported. I hope they did. And if you ever talk to any of them, I hope that, they would say, well, yeah, he looked after us.
They did, yeah. A number of the contacts have said exactly that, yeah.
Is this the generation where success in a TV perspective was 6 o'clock news? Or you mentioned winning 2 nights maybe out of 7. So are there other factors that are in there?
Well, home and away was a big factor for TV3. Getting that at 5:30 made a heck of a difference to us. But yeah, I mean, media's like this. It's like going to war every day without guns, right? You're in there to compete. You want to rate. It brings out the competitive nature in people, and people who are not competitive generally don't make it in media because you really want to succeed. So yeah. You're going for it.
And is that the closest Three's been to TVNZ in the period that you were there in terms of the 6 p.m. news ratings?
Yes, it was. In fact, I think we even got ahead of them in the 25 to 54s from memory. Yeah, it was. I mean, the TV3's peak period was that period up till the sale in 2007. It survived it a bit through 2008, but combination of the GFC and the overwhelming debt took it down, and it's never recovered.
I've got a number of sort of more current day media questions to build into, but I just want to sort of seg into rugby. You've had some genuine regime-changing ideas across your years with rugby in New Zealand. 2 really powerful ones in particular that changed New Zealand rugby for the better. You pushed to get more females on the board of New Zealand Rugby, and you were the architect of Moana coming into Super Rugby. Those are the ones I've picked out. When you reflect back on your years, are those the 2 things you're most proud of?
When I reflect back on rugby, I say this to myself. I gave it my best shot. I gave it everything I possibly could. I don't think I left anything on the table at New Zealand Rugby. And so, people have their own views about whether I did a good, bad, or indifferent job. In fact, I don't really care what they think because I feel comfortable that I gave it everything. Successes, yes. I'm delighted that both the Drua and Moana entered the competition. Yes, around changes to the board, two constitutional changes that I managed to get through. One of them was increasing the number of independents to 3, and the second one was the structure that lasted up until last year, where there were 3 elected by the provinces, 3 nominated by provinces elected by a committee, and 3 independents, and that was for the period until I left. With rugby, yes, I think we did well. During that period, we were highly successful on the field. We had the All Blacks winning the World Cup in 2015. We had the Black Ferns winning 2 World Cups. We won World Cups in sevens, men's and women's, and we did well, and our under-20s program did well. So I think I don't think that was down to me. I think it's the management. I think the board was supportive. But it's a whole organisation thing. It's not more, the chair did this or the chair did that. No, the chair doesn't. The chair runs the meetings. And the chair doesn't get involved in picking the team and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. You
were the first non-playing rugby chair, is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
And the first independent director that didn't come. How did you find? I guess my question is, how did you find your way into around the NZR board?
Oh, okay. Well, after the 2007 World Cup, we I felt that rugby undersold itself. We put in a bid in 2009 for the rights, as did TVNZ, but Sky got it, and I thought it was for a pathetic sum. So I thought to myself, I think I can help these guys. So I became poacher. After I left MediaWorks, I'm poacher turned gamekeeper. And I had really good relationship with Steve Chu, and he and I talked about this, about how you could get more. And so I decided to stand. So I stood as an independent, got on in 2012. And the first job that Mike Eagle, then chairman, gave me, said, the Chiefs owe us some money, so can you go on the board of the Chiefs for 2 years? So I did, and they won the title. Those two.
Were you on the board, or were you chair of the Chiefs?
No, I wasn't chair of the Chiefs. No, Dallas Fisher was chair of the Chiefs. Right. No, I was on the board, and here's one of my proudest. The Chiefs have won 2 Super Rugby titles. I'm the only director the Chiefs have ever had who's only been on the board when they've won. And again, nothing to do with me, because Dave Rennie was an awesome coach, and he had Smithy and that great culture with Liam Messon and all that sort of stuff. But I just take it.
It is interesting that the board of an organisation like that, how the perception is you might be quite hands-on in it, but the reality is you are at the meetings kind of just making guidance decisions, right?
Pretty much, yeah. You that's a thing that you learn around the governance, that you're not a manager. You're not there making a daily decision. You're there to make sure that the organisation is going in the right direction.
Was it difficult, having been so hands-on with MediaWorks, to then be a little bit more hands-off in that space?
I'm sure, Seamus, there are many people who would say he struggled to make that transition.
I could imagine it'd be hard to let go, but I guess it's an exercise in learning new skill sets and learning how to, I guess, push influence in other ways.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I think that is it is a challenge.
I'm keen to talk about one of the more contentious moments, which is the Silver Lake deal. It became incredibly divisive. I was at the Herald at the time, and it seemed to be like there was a new Silver Lake story every day. For listeners who have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm going to attempt to sort of summarise the situation, and then I'm keen to get your feelings on it.
Correct him if he's wrong as well. Just jump in and correct him if he's wrong.
So, New Zealand Rugby wanted to sell a minority stake in its commercial arm to a US private equity firm, Silver Lake, promising $1 billion valuation and much needed cash for the professional and grassroots game. Critics, including professional unions, the Rugby Player Association and former players, worried about selling off the family silver, fearing loss of control over commercialisation and cultural dilution of the national game. The drawn-out negotiations exposed rifts within New Zealand Rugby. They forced compromises that reduced the size of Silver Lake's stake and left lingering tension about how much outside investors should shape the future of the All Blacks and the wider sport. That's the summary. Accurate enough?
That'll do.
So I guess the question is, like, how do you reflect on, you were driving a lot of these decisions. Would you do anything differently?
No. Situation is, when I joined the board in 2012, New Zealand Rugby had revenue of around 100 million and costs of around 100 million. When I left, revenue was 260, costs were 260. And we had COVID. So in the COVID situation, our which was 220, was it? Our revenue at that point was dropping from, at that point, about 170, 180 down to about 40, and the organisation faced bankruptcy. Mark Robinson had just come in as the CEO by a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, and the instruction, which I led from the board, was we've got to cut deep, fast and accurate. So we did. Unfortunately, a lot of very, very good people lost their jobs, and we faced, unless we acted quickly, we faced a significant loss. Significant. In the end, that loss was 19 million for that year. I am absolutely, quietly, in myself, really proud of that we saved it, because otherwise we'd have had to get a government bailout. At the time, the government would have put all sorts of restrictions on New Zealand Rugby and what it could and couldn't do, and we escaped it. Virtually the only rugby union in the world, of the top nations, to do that. Looking at that then, thinking, well, we've got challenges here. We've got, every time our revenue goes up, this is a big mouth to feed, and the mouth's going to continue to feed more. We've also lost now our cash reserves. We got through that because we had cash reserves, a very good policy that had been in for, well, way before my time. We had cash reserves of over $100 million, which saved the organisation. But this isn't going to be good enough going forward. We can't drive increased sponsorship out of the New Zealand market. Rugby has got a vast majority of the revenue out of this market. The TV deal that we had coming through was the highest per capita in the world of sports deals that is currently in place that New Zealand Rugby has, but it's not going to be enough. The Silver Lake proposal, which was around the commercial wing of the business, valued New Zealand Rugby at something like 3.3 billion. Again, a figure that wouldn't be, you couldn't get anywhere near that figure in today's market. So they came in. Whether the Silver Lake investment and what they said that they could achieve around databases, content, whether that's come to fruition or not, I'm not in a position to comment because I'm not there. But the fact of them coming in as that investment has been vital. It's meant that the provinces have been able to get a significant amount of money to build the community game. And all sorts of things positive have come out of the community game in various parts of New Zealand as a result of that money that's been able to flow through. The question then becomes, has the management of private equity been optimum? And again, I can't comment because I'm not there.
Were you surprised at how divisive it became?
Divisive in the sense that that really was driven by the Players Association. We obtained a lot of expert advice. PwC, we got had advisors from New York. We had a terrific amount of top world advice on this deal, and all of that advice was go with it. The provinces, we did a roadshow around the provinces, and they bought into it 100%. So where did the divisiveness come from? Well, it came from people like the New Zealand Herald, and it came from the Players Association. And the Players Association were providing the New Zealand Herald mainly with the information. And one of the things that I find so interesting in this whole area, Stephen, is that our rugby print journalists are rugby jockstrap types. They are not business analysts. And the lack of proper analysis, going through the detail, and just sort of doing top of the line stuff at that time was very frustrating. Tried to address it many times. I'm an open book when it comes to journalists. Come and chat to me, no problem. But that was the most difficult part of that.
Yeah, was it difficult personally? I mean, like I say, this was in the news every day, and it's you as the face of it. Stress, mental health, that sort of thing. Like, how do you deal with that side of things?
Oh no, no, I'm fine with that. I didn't find that. I found that as a focus. Right, we had to. If we'd made this decision, was it the best way forward? Let's achieve it. So no, I wasn't stressed in that sense. It was challenging because we were taking New Zealand Rugby in a different direction. And for those who get involved in rugby administration, you learn that there are two conflicts that happen on a daily basis. You're dealing with the conflict between the professional game, which only is about 0.2% or 0.3% of the players, and the vast majority of the community game. So they're competing for resource. And then on the other side, you've got this clash between what's happening in society. Is it changes to the way the game is played, different styles, let's bring Ripper, new media, social media, how people are going to consume the game versus tradition. This is what got us there, the hard tradition of New Zealand rugby going back to the originals, the Invincibles, the 56 Springboks, Kevin Skinner, Richie McCaw, etc. So you've got these conflicts running at exactly the same time. How do you maneuver, how do you manage your way through that to grow the game, grow the revenue, keep your base, grow your base?
There was a pretty fascinating, I'm not sure fascinating is the right word, a serious sub-story happening across this period too, for you personally, right? Because you're fighting a cancer battle as this is all playing out, which I don't think people knew at the time. But
in COVID too.
And this is during COVID times. What can you tell us, if you're okay to talk about, what the cancer was and how it affected perhaps life and what life looked like?
On the cancer, so I started off, this tumour grew out the back of my head about the size of a golf ball. And so clearly something was wrong, and went to the local doctor, and he said, "I'll take blood tests," and he came back and said, "You've got multiple myeloma, which is not sort of cancer you want, and you will survive for a few years, but your life is significantly shortened. But we need to go and get a biopsy done as well as taking that out." Fortunately, that came back with a different result of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which, if you're going to get cancer, is not a bad cancer to get, because if your body can survive the chemo, then you're in chance of full remission and recovery. So I did the chemo for 6 months under a Peter Browett at the Canopy Centre, and got through it. Lost all my hair. Obviously, I see photographs of me now. I was pretty, body was thrown about. At the time, I was determined that I would carry on doing what I was doing because I wasn't mentally affected by it. But I learned a lot out of the cancer. I have a friend, Julian Reeves, who's a psychologist, who took me aside and said, "Brent, you're the worst personality to have cancer because you're so competitive. You're going to just ignore it. You're just going to fight it. And that's just you. You just get so focused on it." And he said, "I want you to do 3 things for me. One is I want you to listen to your body. Secondly, when you're feeling terrible with the chemo, which you will do, celebrate it, because it means that the cancer cells are getting dealt to. And thirdly, be creative, dream, think of things outside the square." And he gave me a great story of what he'd learned at Harvard on this. And I did those 3 things, and it has changed me. So, as part of that then became the physical fitness and some of the other things that I believe in. It was tough times. I think there were people who felt that I should pull back from my various consultancies, etc. I decided not to do that because it, for one primary reason, it distracted me from the cancer, and I listened to my body, so I didn't overstretch it, and managed to get through it. I was very fortunate. I had great support from my family. Amanda, my ex-wife, she was terrific in terms of guiding the family through, because all the family thought that I'd just paint a rosy picture, and so whenever I got the reports, I'd send them to my brother, who's he's into medical as well. He lives in Hawaii, and he sort of kept the family informed, so that worked out really well. And now as I'm sitting here 5 years later, I'm through it.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Did those lessons? Because I asked a few people, do you think he's slowed down? Resoundingly, everyone said no, he's not slowed down. He's just changed his focus. But do you think maybe that was an opportunity to take stock and say, hey, actually, maybe focusing on other areas might be my future?
Well, I think I have focused on the future. I don't believe in slowing down. I don't believe in retirement. I think it's an outdated concept because you've got to keep going. And I have some rules around that I'm happy to talk about too, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so I'll give you those. I think that I go by five things. Number one is keeping physically fit. Which is in my case is the walking, or now do Wednesday boxing at Waiheke. I'm right into that, run by the local cop. It's awesome. Secondly is mental, keeping yourself mentally active. So that's a group of directorships or consultants or whatever. And for those, for me, I've got to be into them, and they've got to be challenging, and I've got to be able to add value to them. So the mental. Thirdly is diet. So pretty good on the diet. Fourthly is moderation, and I do have I have a weak point there because I love wine and I have gin. And I've got sort of friends who would be more encouraging in that respect than discouraging. And the last one is relationships. So and that means approaching life like that, so that you're open to new friendships, you're welcoming new people, you want to talk with me, interesting people, as opposed to going like that. And so if you put all those things together, the concept of what you asked me about slowing down is actually in conflict with that.
Yeah.
It's important. Is it important to you to have frameworks like that, the 5 steps?
No. Is it important to me to have frameworks? I just get on do it anyway. Yeah. So I don't know.
I'm keen to link back to rugby because you're very uniquely placed. I've got lots of questions. I heard that you and Graham Henry had a few ideas way back, sort of 10 years ago, about how you could improve participation in Auckland and how you could get more kids to play, because it seems like there might be a problem with getting the younger generation to engage with the game.
In Auckland?
In Auckland, or in New Zealand, wherever you want to take it.
But keep it at Auckland, yeah. Auckland is different from the rest. Auckland has got very unique challenges that you just don't find anywhere else.
Such as?
Completely different ethnic mix. It's much harder. Transport, all that sort of stuff. Cost. School system is different. You've got so many schools in Auckland that don't play rugby, and then you've got a number of schools that rugby is a focus. You've got the issues with Harbour and Auckland, and you've got situations such as Wesley College, which plays in that Central North Island competition. So each week might have to go to Masterton to play against Wairarapa when they're half an hour from playing Auckland Grammar. So
assuming, listening to what you're saying, that you subscribe to the theory if Auckland Rugby is strong, New Zealand Rugby is strong?
No, not really. I think that's an old adage. And I'd argue at the moment New Zealand Rugby is strong. I think we've got one of the greatest lot of All Black forwards we've had for years. So watch this space. I'm really confident about that. No, I think Auckland has unique rugby issues.
So what are you placed to are you plugged into like what we can do to better engage the youth in rugby in New Zealand?
I'm not going to comment about what the situation is now because, as I said to you guys before we started, I will not comment or criticise any organisation that I have left, because I do believe that when you resign from the Navy, you're out of the Navy. So I'm not going to comment about anything to do with what New Zealand Rugby does now, because I don't know.
Yeah.
Back then, what you asked me about was Graham and I had a meeting with Auckland secondary school principals, and we also drove what was called a wider Auckland strategy. We achieved nothing. We believed that there should be combined Auckland, Harbour and counties secondary school competition. We also believed that there should be club competitions that united. Yes, you can pick your NPC teams, and we felt as if that the administration were too tunnel visioned in what they were looking at. So we had two groups. We had the secondary school. I remember the meeting at Eden Park, and pretty well got nowhere. No, not pretty well. We got nowhere. And then the wider Auckland strategy, we had a number of meetings to try and see if we could get some of these things happening, but nothing. So I'd put that down as we gave it our shot, but we didn't make it.
Do you still have, I know you won't comment on it, but do you still have thoughts on how the game can improve in this country that you are willing to share?
I've got thoughts on how the game can improve, but no, I'd rather keep them to myself. I'm happy to talk about it with mates over the bar,
or on those Sunday walks.
Yeah, Sunday walk, but no, not publicly. I as soon as I start down that path, it's hey mate, you were there, you were there for 10 years. Why didn't you do them? Yeah, it's a fair question. So, no.
What about rugby in terms of sort of a broadcast entity and its place in the ecosystem and what it's looking like as an entertainment package, and thoughts on the direction of the game?
Yeah, well, in terms of a broadcast package, my view is what was in 2019 and was in 2015 that Sky could not exist without rugby, and vice versa. Rugby needed Sky, and that the way forward was for that to be completely recognised. And I think in the deal that was done for 2020 to 25, I think that was done. We had $11 million as part of that deal, which was non-cash to promote and grow the game, which was in Sky's interests and in New Zealand Rugby's interests. As you look forward, we all know that the world is going to be overtaken, that linear television is going to be overtaken by digital. We all know that. It's no different from FM radio or AM radio. We know eventually that it's all going digital, but we don't know when. We don't know when that line is crossed, and so that's the challenge in negotiating and finding the right value to your question.
Just one question on World Cups. So you mentioned the 15 World Cup, obviously, which we won, but the 19 World Cup, which we didn't win. What does that look like when you're the chair?
That is tense. That is watching a match in which you say absolutely nothing, and you are boiling up inside. It is incredibly tense and incredibly disappointing. And you go down to the dressing room after each test, win, lose or draw, and that was tough. And have expectations, disappointment. Everybody's disappointed, but again, you're all part of the same team, and you're all there to be supportive of each other. My memory of the 2019 World Cup dressing room was devastation for Kieran Reid, who'd put everything he possibly could into it, and great admiration for Sonny Bill Williams, a person I got on very well with and I've got a lot of respect for. And Sonny's more, I guess, holistic attitude to it, I think helped the young guys in the team.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a scene that nothing kind of prepares you for walking into that environment and at that level.
No, it's tense. Yet then the 215, of course, the reverse. We had some great players leaving, and we had a really spectacular finish, and some, again, very interesting things that went through that campaign. But so from elation to devastation. Yeah.
Is there a yarn of you at the 2015 World Cup at Twickenham bumping into some bloke sitting next to you that you had no idea who he was, but he turns out to be quite an important character, and he's a character that's popped up on this podcast about 3 or 4 times as well?
I think I know the story. So the 2015 World Cup, we get to the final, and then it's all very sort of haughty-taughty, right? And you leave your seat, which is all nice leather.
You've been dressed by Wendy, I imagine?
Yeah, I had my all black, yeah.
The Parkers on.
Yeah. She can hardly talk because the deal was, while the All Blacks were winning, she had to wear the same dress to every test. So she wore the same dress to about 40 damn test matches. So she doesn't win the whole sartorial argument here. Anyway, so we go in at half time to whatever they've got their little scones and things. And as we're walking out, I've got Wendy's in front of me, then there's me, and behind me is Steve Chu. And there's this guy at the door saying, shaking hands with everybody. And anyway, he comes to me, and I couldn't quite hear him as he comes up and he shakes my hand. And I said to him, "Sorry, mate, what's your name?" And he says, "Oh, Prince Albert of Monaco." Anyway,
his rubbish is the same.
Rubbish is the same.
Yeah, gold-plated rubbish bin,
exactly.
Stood you in good stead. That.
I'm keen to just have a little detour into the current media landscape. I heard you on another interview describe parts of New Zealand media as a carnage zone, and I wondered, with your role at RNZ, what you're doing or what it looks like, or are you helping sort out the mess?
My view on the media has changed over the last 20 years. If you go, and I think I have to take some personal responsibility for the carnage. If you look back at 2007, that deal that MediaWorks sold to Ironbridge for 777 million has in fact destroyed that company. TV3 got sold the other day to Sky for $1, and it's almost inevitable. There was too much debt. And I'll tell you the Sky story around MediaWorks at that time. And John Follett, who I get on really well with, we became friends, we reflect on the story. So at that time, the radio company and the TV company were both making what EBITDA, would call that profit, of 35 million each, 70 million. Ironbridge paid a multiple of 11. So 11 years times 70, paid 77, ended up at 777. Before they bid, Sky, I believed that at the time, the best deal for MediaWorks, because Canadians wanted to sell, and they'd been great shareholders, was to Sky. And Sky offered a multiple of 6, and that price was 420 million. When the 777 deal happened, I knew from that day that I would be leaving, because it was going to be impossible. And their argument was, we're going to grow the digital. Digital is the future. So they brought in all these experts from Australia who actually knew nothing. And nothing happened, right? And then the GFC started. So I was very fortunate. I had some people around me who said, plan your exit. And I did. I planned my exit 2.5 years before I left MediaWorks. I knew I'd be going. I knew there'd be a clash coming between the shareholders and me. So that's what happened. Now, if you look at the landscape, MediaWorks has been in receivership at least once, if not twice, since then, and today sold for $1. That is actually, while a lot of it is down to technology changes, a lot of it is down to too much debt. On the radio side, they're more fortunate in that the organisation has been split, and is a very, very good business that Wendy runs. if you then say what has been the impact on television, linear television, in my view, is a sunset industry, and will be replaced over a very short period of time. If you look at TVNZ, I think the only strategy that they could have adopted is the one they've done. TVNZ Plus, good on them. They're giving it a shot. We've discussed TV3. You then look at what's happening around news and opinions and trust. We've seen from overseas and also in New Zealand the development of media businesses that have a political bias, in some cases a very strong political bias, right or left. And then it's not surprising that the public have developed less trust for the media. And where my opinion has changed in that 20 years ago, I would have argued that the private broadcaster can build that trust, and I think we did that at 3 News. I think we did it well. But today, I can't see anyone else other than a publicly owned entity being able to do that. And for Radio New Zealand, now the good news for Radio New Zealand is that those trust numbers are building up as a result of what we're seeing with all of the various platforms and biases that we're seeing from overseas and also here. So I think that RNZ, and the reason I'm as happy to go on the board, I think we can build on that. I think there's stuff to build up from that base.
Do you think New Zealand media companies have been innovating fast enough?
I think it comes down to the debt again. So if you've got too much debt, you've got no money to innovate. And that's held back a number of the media companies. Look at Stuff, sold for $1. Another one. NZME's had its challenges as well. Look at the recent issues around its directorships, etc. MediaWorks we've covered. We've had too much debt, and there are plenty of people in New Zealand. Look at your podcast here. This is innovative, right? There's plenty of innovation, plenty of people out in New Zealand, great at coming up with great ideas, but you can't do it with no capital.
Have I heard you somewhere as well say that what's happening in New Zealand will start to be replicated in bigger markets around the world? That often New Zealand is like the last place where things to happen, but in case of media, it's the first place where these things are happening,
very much so.
And we'll see it domino around bigger markets.
I think that's right, Seamus. I mean, because we're a small market, those changes have accelerated. And what we have seen in New Zealand media starting to happen, very much so in Australia, will then spread to the other countries that we're sort of similar to. If you look at Canada, Ireland, UK, States. Yep. So we're the start, and we're only the start because we've got such a small population and we've got so much media. We believe that every New Zealander thinks we should have as many TV channels or radio stations. In fact, we've got more radio stations in Australia, but we should have as much. We should be the same as everybody else. Yeah, that's all very well, but if you're with 5 million people, it's challenging, and I do run this as a sort of a sideline to it. If you can make it in media in New Zealand, you can make it anywhere.
The game has changed in media. I think of this podcast as an example. You know, it is a podcast that started as predominantly an audio medium. Now we're building our YouTube, like that's important, and it's social media. It's TikTok and Facebook and YouTube Shorts. What are you in tune with the sort of the social developments? Like, do you spend a lot of time on YouTube? Are you like watching clips on social media, Instagram, Facebook?
Stephen, I watch you on YouTube.
Yeah,
I've seen 8 of you.
Yeah, that's where you watch it.
And when I'm out walking, I've got podcasts on, either listening or watching all the time. I'm not really into Facebook or Instagram. I mean, I've got a Facebook account, but it's really only there for kids, and we don't use it either, really. But yeah, the podcast thing very much so, and I find it good because I can choose when to consume.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like the Stephen Colbert show in the US is a good example of this. It's been pulled off air for a number of reasons, but the high production, 70-odd staff putting it together. And what's he going to do? He's probably just going to start a podcast, with a fraction of the staff and investment. He's still going to get all the clips on all the different channels and the YouTube. And it's kind of like, well, why would you not do that?
Well, there's an example of the scale that's already happening in the States, right? Late night television, the big thing, remember the late night shows and all of that sort of stuff, and look what's happened at Hollywood in terms of production, down. So what, in answer to the earlier question, is flowing through. We're seeing it before our eyes.
This has been really, really interesting. I've got a few bigger questions to kind of take us on the home straight. What makes a great CEO?
People, working with people. It's all about, it's that tangata, it's people. It's all it is. And it's you being able to work with, inspire, help develop, grow. That's what it's about.
In your opinion, the most important skill to have in business?
Listening. It's probably my weakness too.
It's funny because actually that was put forward as one of your strengths by one of your former colleagues. Said that his ability to listen and give actual considered answer to the question or the query that's being put to him is what has held him in such good stead. So maybe it's a strength rather than a weakness.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, look, it's all about people, because the structures can change all around you, and whether they are the capital structure, the economy, the industry, whatever. But if you've got good people and your people are all working together, then the sky's the limit.
The other thing which struck me, and you mentioned it early on, is that maybe tough exterior but the softer interior. Something that came through from another one of your former management team was the ability to throw a punch but also take a punch, the ability to take a joke but also give a joke. So I guess humour and empathy are probably two of the things maybe that might help as well.
Oh yeah, humour's great, because if things get too tense, a little one-liner here and there, that certainly helps matters. Yeah, and got to admit too that you're not right all the time. I mean, many of the decisions, I think back to MediaWorks time, that I thought were good ideas weren't. And I'm not afraid to throw in the radical idea. I mean, I'll give you an idea that I threw at New Zealand Rugby when I first became the chair, which never got any traction. No one ever thought it was a good idea, and nothing has ever happened. And that is that as society moves on, rugby and league should merge. Not the game, but clubs. Like at Manarewa, for example, the two side by side. Who cares if it's a 15, 13, 11, 10, ripper, tag, whatever it is? Let the clubs merge and let a kid decide what he wants to play. And then we're only a small country of 5 million. Then the Warriors become they're linked, so you could transfer players between super clubs and the Warriors, vice versa. At that level, you could have kids running around learning how to kick a ball, also learning all the skills of rugby league as well. Never got anywhere. That's not going to happen here. They're not the same as us. What bullshit. So. But I never got any traction of that, and I still believe it today, that the best thing for New Zealand Rugby League and New Zealand Rugby Union to do would be to merge the organisations and encourage clubs to get together. Now, if some clubs decide, no, they want to keep separate, they don't want anything to do with it, fine. Who cares? Kids can still come along to their club and run around playing rugby league or rugby union. It doesn't really matter. If you go, and that's about going to the consumer. The consumer is the player. What is best for the kid, the player, to play the game? Now, I only give that as an example because that was something that I put up in my first speech as chair to the provincial unions, and I got zero support. So there you go. There's an example.
It's an interesting one because I think about the the framework that it takes to run an amateur sports club, if you think about combining those resources, it does make a lot of sense, rather than heap pressure on the volunteer administrator to combine those two things.
And those volunteer administrators are under more pressure now than they used to be, because they're time poor, and the way things have gone in society, it's harder to get people to come along and help a club. Yeah.
You mentioned humour before. There was a good story we'd heard about when you were on your way out at MediaWorks, and there was a big sort of video montage of your time there, and there was a little joke popped in at the end of the video of a boat flipping, perhaps.
We've actually got the footage.
Oh dear.
Grunter asked us if we could slip it in at the end of it. We said no, it's not. It's not your show.
So so we've had a place at a wonderful beach called Matarangi for a very long time, and got a what boat was that? It was a I think it was a Buccaneer 505, I think it was, and anyway, use it for fishing, use it for skiing. And this day, I'm out in the harbour with three, my older son Blair and a couple of his mates. They were at university in those days. And anyway, I go out and I get a phone call from my neighbour, and he says, I'm thinking of taking the boat out fishing. Could you go and have a look at the bar? And I've been over this bar hundreds of times. So I said, oh yeah, all right, come on boys, let's get on the, we'll go and have a look at the bar. So I go around into the bar, and I go up this wave, and holy hell, it's a bit, and came down, and then I could see another one coming right at me, so I banged the accelerator, got up, and just about got to the top, and then the boat just started going like that, and went back on its back. And anyway, we all got out okay, we're all wearing life jackets, but it was fairly embarrassing. The boat got towed right along Matarangi Beach, and all that sort of stuff, boat written off, and anyway, part of life.
And someone got video footage of it and then played it at your
Yeah. That was very helpful, but who cares?
Switching gears from boats, and we spoke about what makes a great CEO, but what makes a great chair?
I think it's about ensuring that you minimise conflict at decision-making time. Robust discussion. So I encourage every director and the CEO at the board table to be completely open. I don't care what they say, really. But at the end, we've got to reach a decision. I can only remember on one occasion where I've gone to vote. I avoid the vote at all costs. If we can't get a resolution, I'd rather go back and work at it again outside the meeting and come back. I think that's absolutely critical, because you're a team. And generally, people are people. People are good people. And you can break down the egos. You can break down barriers with good, sensible discussion. So that's the first thing. It's got to be collective decision making. Secondly, you don't interfere with the management. I mean, if you speak to Mark Evans at the Drua, or Steve Chu, or Mark Robinson, or I chair an advertising agency, Mel Spencer, I'm there for them to ask questions. I'll throw in ideas. I could throw in wild ideas, but I won't go in and I won't manage I won't step over that line, and I've learnt that as a chair. Thirdly, I say, and this doesn't quite apply to organisations like New Zealand Rugby, because it's an institution, but to commercial business, what's your exit strategy? You're going to be in this business till you're 60. You're going to, is this your life? What's your exit strategy? How are we going to get this business in a state, even if you don't sell it, that it can be sold? So it's getting them to forward think and start thinking of options outside of their own day-to-day life.
That's good. That's a bloody good answer.
I just made it up too.
Yeah. One of the things I was keen to dig on a little bit on the home straight is the link to Pacifica, because we spoke to your kids, and they were Reflecting on sort of growing up and, noticing that in Auckland that all of their teammates were white and there wasn't that sort of diversity, and then you made a real point of changing that. And I'm keen to sort of follow that thread from there into Moana and Drua and why that's been important to you.
Yes, so when the University Rugby Junior Club started, I went in as a coach, and there were all these kids who were hanging around in Glen Innes. So we got them into the team. I mean, my car was known for driving around at night in Glen Innes picking up young boys. I mean, you really shouldn't do that,
no.
should you? It's not a very
in trouble.
You get in trouble. Anyway, and so we developed 2 full teams, a mixture between Pakeha, Māori, Fijian, Samoan and Tonga. And we did really well. These 2 teams, one of them won the competition, the other was third, and we did really well. And out of it came, well, as a family, we can do more. So we adopted a Fijian family. And this family was struggling financially. In the end, the dad had to go back to Fiji, and the son, who was in Blair's rugby team, we'd take him away to holidays at Matarangi, and then there was a Tongan boy who did the same. And so they started to learn that there are different cultures, and it's not all nice living in St Heliers. There's another side that's very important to learn about. And then for those kids, it was a hand up as well. And in the case of Mate, the Fijian, he's now a senior in the Fijian military. I'm really proud of that. I mean, it's awesome. And then that sort of developed into other things. I became chairman of what's known as the Fred Hollows Foundation, and we built an eye clinic in Suva. It's right by the hospital in Brown Street in Suva, and it's a really modern, great facility. That was good. And then that sort of has led into other things, like I'm now chair of what's known as Pacifica TV, which is providing New Zealand and Pacifica content to 15 countries in the Pacific and 27 broadcasters. And we've got a CEO, Natasha Malaysia, who's just a fantastic operator. And this is part of New Zealand's sort of responsibility, and as we grow that content, there's now shared content production, etc. And then into the rugby side, it's sort of a bit of a fallacy when people say that rugby dropped away when South Africa was taken out of Super Rugby. They actually did that themselves. We didn't do it. And so what were we then going to do? Australian rugby was in a pretty tight situation. It's got better, much better now with the 4 teams, and then the 2 Pacifica teams. And when I left New Zealand Rugby, I thought my rugby days were over, and I was happy about that. But got approached to join the Drua, and I'm also a big fan of Moana succeeding as well. A really big fan of that, because I think it's important for both Moana and it's also important for the Drua. And if we look at it for 4 years down the track, we're still in startup. We're doing a capital raise. We have had success on the field. We've had failures. We've got challenges, but you can see the light at the big light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to make it. We're going to win the damn thing at some point, and we're going to be the biggest brand in Super Rugby. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I can see that Brent Impey focus.
That laser focus has started.
Wouldn't bet against it.
Yeah. It's an interesting, like Fiji and Drua is an interesting concept in itself, because are you able to galvanise Fiji Airways and the strategic positioning of Fiji where it is in terms of linking in that private equity or that external influence as well?
There will be no private equity. the marketing team, led by Shane Hussain, has done a great job in pulling in the sponsors. The sponsorship for the Drua is higher than any other super club.
Is it the only super club that's making any money?
No, I think others are making money. If the Drua, it makes a little bit of money, but it's only a little bit, right? You're essentially break even. It has cash flow challenges like all super clubs because you're running a 12-month business with 6 months revenue because of the competition not being that long. So it's challenging. But yeah, the board, which was this, and I give World Rugby credit for this, the World Rugby decided when they're going to assist the Drua that the board be 3 independents plus one from the Fiji government, who are 51% shareholder, and one from the Fiji Rugby Union, who the other 49% shareholder. And that has worked. So it's a very professional outfit. There are lots of things to learn, and I'm learning a lot around the cultural aspects of it as well. But we're the only professional sports team in the Pacific at all, of any code, of anything. So, and the team is all Fijian, and a lot of the management are that as well. And so we're all in a sort of growing phase.
One thing I will say that has become very apparent over this time we've been talking is you've got fingers in a lot of pies. Like, I feel like we've only just kind of scratched the surface of so much stuff, and there's one more I want to get to, which is you're now putting energy into creating a foundation to support young athletes, which is kind of, I've heard, sort of similar to the Tanya Dalton Foundation.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, well, I feel I've been lucky in life, financially pretty secure. So obviously my children, who are going to get a bit of a telling off for passing over this sort of stuff. Anyway, what I decided to do was to set up a foundation to give a hand up to young athletes, not a handout, a hand up.
I had that in my notes, hand up, not hand out. Please explain.
Yeah, so a young athlete who's trying hard could just be given a bit of a hand up. Like there's a famous example of Valerie Adams who talks about someone who gave her some shoes. Or I was listening to your podcast of Zion Armstrong getting the hand up from Ross Dello. That's the idea behind it. So I've linked up with Active Sport Auckland and got my kids involved. And so the idea is each year there'll be grant or grants that go to young athletes to give them a chance. Those who come from a background where they won't get that chance. So that's the idea.
Just to look back to rugby as well, how's the project of trying to bring Ukrainian rugby players to New Zealand going? Is that still something that is a dream, or is it closer to becoming reality? So probably the thing I spend most of my time or mental time on outside of these directorships is Kiwi Ukraine. And I went to Ukraine last October with Tembi Powell. This is sort of a follow-on from raising the money on Waiheke. And we met the Ukrainian Rugby Union. And it's driven by this woman who is just amazing, just so driven. And it was infectious. So came back to New Zealand and linked up with Irans, Wayne Taylor, who owns Irans. And the plan was to bring 80 rugby players, so it'll be young 18 and 20-year-olds, 15s, men's and women's 7s. So men's 15, boys 15s, women's 7s, women's 15s, and 10 odd coaches, about 80 people involved. We went and saw Winston Peters, who was incredibly good, incredibly supportive, and he loved the idea of providing some assistance. The feedback came back not until the war's over, so which is fair and completely understood. So it's still there in the planning, and it's still a viable proposition, but it's just not the right timing. And you can understand it too, in the sense of here they are in
brutal war, taking young kids, well, under 20s if you like, out of the country. It's not great optics. I get that. So so that's still there. I'm pleased we've done the planning. I'm very pleased with the response from the minister, and we'll see.
Is there a world in which a couple of Ukrainians might turn up for the Fiji Enduro in the future?
They're big guys, right? They are big guys. I mean, look
it's a genuine question.
I mean, look at Fabian Holland.
That was my example. Was someone who comes out here with rugby on their mind and then becomes an All Black.
Great idea, Seamus.
It's probably already in that. No, you probably already discussed it on a Sunday walk.
No, I'll tell you what, I will. Yeah, very innovative.
3 little bits from me. One piece of advice for young leaders, if you had to give one.
Yes, and this is advice I've given my children, and it's only do things that you really are passionate about. Don't go into any role where you're not really that interested. Like, I'm hopeless in motor cars, right? If somebody opens the bonnet to say, take out a spark plug, I just get lost, right? Be passionate. Only do things that you really love doing. And I see that in my kids. Blee loves doing hospitality. Josh wanted to get in and own his own business. Tash, with the Starship Foundation, they're doing what they love. Wendy does what she loves at MediaWorks. That's the critical thing. Don't take shortcuts as far as that's concerned. And also, go for challenges. Don't necessarily do the easy stuff, because the easy stuff, you can tick it off, but who cares? Just have a bit of a challenge. Go for that. Those are the 2 things, really.
I thought you might say one bit of advice would be you'll never regret a swim. Are you still doing the get in the ocean once a week with Tash?
Yeah, gosh. So that was a challenge through the winter. But yeah, I went for a swim the other day. It was a beautiful day. So Oneroa Beach, was a bit of surf came in because it was after the northerlies had subsided a bit. Yeah, got in there, give it a go.
That is going to be my wrap. I mean, the coolest thing, there's lots of cool parts to your story, but your kids love you, and the importance and the closeness of the family unit that we have experienced from calling around. So that example was from Tash. She said that you made a pact to get in the ocean with her once a week in 2021. I think it was after the cancer. She was a newborn. It was something you did together, and you stuck with it. Josh, putting you forward and wanting to capture your story to come on the podcast. It seems like that is goals, like that is what it's all about, right? Like sharing the time and having the respect of your kids and them wanting to spend time with you.
Hey, Stephen, when you go to a funeral, how often do you see, someone get up and say, "Oh, he was a good businessman. He cut the costs by 20%. He managed to drive the revenue." You never hear any of that. It's, what was that person like as a mother or a father? What were they like as a family person? What were they like as a friend? What were they like emotionally? Because that's the important stuff. All the other stuff, by and large, is kind of irrelevant. It's important.
And we've heard about the role you play as a grandfather and coming in with the front pack, and you're going on these long walks. So it's just the whole package of the friendship, the 70-year-old walking group, the Father's Day, the family, the life, the business. It's been, such a cool time learning about your life and sharing it with you. So
I've been privileged, haven't I?
You have.
You have been. You've been really the everyone's rubbish is the same on the inside is something that I'm going to take away from this conversation as something that sticks. But I've had that line from the Rudyard Kipling poem rattling around in my head, as if you can walk with kings nor lose the common touch. Like, it's something that struck me about learning about your story before speaking to you is that ability to treat everybody the same, and it runs through in your body of work, I think, as well, is that you've had these amazing highs, but also you're knocking off work at 3 o'clock to go and coach the local kids, play a bit of footy. You've got the NZR experience, but you're now impacting it on Fiji and Drua. You're very lucky to live where you live in Waiheke Island, but you're also visiting Ukraine to see what's happening there. It's a really, really interesting dynamic and an example of using all of those life experiences to enrich the world that we live in, which is really awesome.
Oh, thanks, mate. Very good.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brent. It's been awesome sharing this time with you.
Pleasure. Love meeting you. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Brent.